And I'm going to have to mute myself so I don't come in double. Just setting up this meeting. So great to be with all of you today. Okay, and we are live streaming. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go to my speaker view so that you can see me. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. So great to have all of you. We've already got like 100 people on and it's only 2 minutes past the hour. So I can tell everyone is really in like, how do I start my year off right mode, or that is my guess. My name is Margaret Lynch Ranieri. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yes, and please say hello on the chat and tell me where you are from. So great to see you. My name is Margaret Lynch Ranieri. I do have a cold, so you might notice some of you who know me, my voice does not sound normal. No worries. I see some of you laughing. I am the author of the book Unblocked, which came out with Hay House a couple of years ago. And so today is the first of this series I'm doing called the Unblocked series, where I'm going to be teaching kind of a review of the 4 big chapters of this book and giving you an experience of the tapping for each chakra. How does that sound, everybody? How does that sound? All right, sounds good. Great, great, great. Let's see. I don't know what that is. And welcome to all of you here in the Zoom room with me. So great to see all of you. I'm going to show everybody that just for a second. Wow, look at everybody. I can see all here in the Zoom room. So great to see you. And we are streaming on YouTube. So welcome to all of our friends on YouTube today. Again, my name is Margaret Lynch Ranieri, and we are just getting started with this Unblocked series. Today, we're talking about Chakra 1, and we really are following along with my book Unblocked. And by the way, this is a series of 4 calls, Chakra 1, 2, 3, and 4. That covers my book. And I have nothing to sell you, except maybe if you want to pick up my book on Amazon, I would love that. Or do a review of my book on Amazon, I would absolutely love that. So today we're going to dive in and start talking about the first chakra. I'm going to walk you through some things that maybe you've studied the chakras before. You're going to hear some things you've never heard before. Maybe you've never heard of the chakras. No worries. We're talking about them in a very specific way. My background is actually in engineering, believe it or not. 18 years ago, I was an engineer for 18 years in corporate America. And so I come at the chakras in a very practical, grounded way. And then I'm going to bring you through an experience. We're going to do an assessment as well. And one of the gifts that you get for signing up for this series, especially if you're in the Zoom room with me here, you would have access to what I call the chakra assessments. I'm going to talk about those as well today, because I have found one of the most important things to do is we start looking at what do these chakras mean and how can it transform my life. The first thing that we have to do is do an assessment, is to figure out what is my issue, and more important than how do I fix it, question for me was, where do I go to fix it? So you're going to hear me talk about that a lot as part of my inspiration in delving into the chakras some 15, 16 years ago, as I started out as a coach, leaving corporate America, learning about tapping, learning about hypnotherapy, and then found the chakras as this beautiful model. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We've jumped up by 30 people, so it's great to see you. And I know there's people out there on YouTube watching as well. So hello, everybody. We are talking about Unblocked. This is our Unblocked series and Chakra 1 today. So let's start just by talking about the chakras in general. And speaking of first chakra, which is very grounded and containing, let me tell you that we're probably going to go over an hour today. It's probably going to be 75 minutes, maybe even 90 minutes, because I don't want to skimp on time for you to experience the tapping. So again, I have nothing to sell you. If you pick up a copy of my book on Amazon, I would love that if you pick up a copy of Unblocked. But this series of 4 calls is really just how we kick off the year in 2025 as we're getting ready for New Year's Eve here to start out the year changing our energy. Yeah, changing our energy. So welcome to the Unblocked series, class number 1 on the first chakra. So let's start talking about chakras in general. Chakras come from the ancient yogic tradition, and the concept is that there are 7 energy centers inside the human body. And some people in the more of the personal psychology or self-help field years ago, like Anna Dea Judith and Carolyn Mace, started to look at the chakras, these 7 centers in the body, in a couple of different ways. Because you could think of a chakra as, this swirling energy center in different colors. They're the color of the rainbows. But I find it more fascinating and more powerful and more practical to apply when we look at the chakras as levels of consciousness that develop with us developmentally. And the first one to develop is chakra 1, first chakra. So thank you, Bethany. I know she's muting you guys. Says you, come on. Thank you. Thank you. And so the first chakra is the very first one to develop, and it's literally the most important chakra. Now, I will say that the heart chakra is supposed to be your most important chakra, but it often isn't, because our heart chakra is often being bypassed by a first chakra that has only learned fear and is not filled. I'm going to read you a little bit from Unblocked about filling the first chakra cup. And so if you're wondering where your first chakra is in your body, you are sitting on it. It is this bundle of nerves at the base of your spine, or the coccyx. It's associated with the fight or flight, the nervous system of our body. And it comes online as we are born into this world. And we realize as we come through, we are completely helpless. On this planet, you can be wounded, you can starve, you can die in a painful way. And so the first chakra, the nervous system of a baby, tells it, I need to survive. And it starts taking in information about our survival. Are there parents holding me and loving me when I feel this pain that I don't understand, which is hunger? Is that being immediately noticed by someone and soothed? Or do I have periods of great discomfort where I feel alone and unsoothed in this raw little nervous system, which doesn't have a lot of ability yet to screen out the world, to screen out lights and noises and things that are uncomfortable. And so our first chakra comes online when we're born. And if there was a question in the first chakra, it would be, am I safe? And the second part of that question would be, oh, do I matter enough to be kept safe? You see how those two things become linked. Am I important enough, loved enough, wanted enough, matter enough that when I am uncomfortable, hungry, in pain, scared, or overstimulated, dysregulated, that someone notices right away and soothes that pain? So my nervous system experiences these peaks of stress and then calm, and then peaks of stress and then calm. And I know many of you have held and fed a crying baby until they are, snuggling and gurgling and content, and then they fall asleep. That's what it looks like for a nervous system to have a peak of stress and then be soothed and calmed. And so part of the blind spot that the nervous system is, the fight or flight that comes from our first chakra, is that we don't often remember or recognize or notice our own agitation, our own fight or flight, our own peaks of stress or level of stress in a way that as adults, we are catering to that. We are calming ourselves. We are caring for ourselves. And instead, we have learned to adapt. And we use our upper chakras to adapt. For instance, at the third chakra, I can achieve and achieve and achieve and achieve and be a perfect little girl or boy because that makes me safe and nothing else did. So if I make a mistake, it feels like death to me. And I know there's some of you on right now that if you aren't perfect or you make a mistake, inside your body, it can feel like I'm falling backwards into the black hole. And that actually comes from the first chakra. So blind spot, because over my 18 years of working with thousands of clients in groups, many of whom who have either been therapists or been in therapy for years, and everyday people from all walks of life, they're often trying to solve a first chakra problem with their mind, with their thoughts, with their strategies, or even with meditation, which can have some limited success if you practiced it enough. And so often we're going to all of these places. And most people spend their whole lives trying to achieve their way out of the first chakra fear that they have. So they feel safe if I've proved myself and I'm finally good enough. So we've lost contact with actually what's happening with our first chakra. And this is why, as part of this series, I'm giving you this series of downloadable assessments, just a series of 6 questions you can ask yourself to self-diagnose your first chakra. So we get out of some of our thinking and we actually tune in to the blind spot that is our first chakra. Now, I will say, how many of you on the call consider yourself to be pretty smart? Yeah, yeah. It's a little bit of a liability when it comes to the first chakra because we're sometimes too smart for our own good. We are outthinking all of our first chakra issues. And again, that's why for the smarter people that I deal with, the most intelligent and driven, achievement oriented, the first chakra becomes like the biggest blind spot. So I'm going to read, this is the Unblocked series. So I'm going to read you a little bit from Unblocked about the first chakra. And then we're going to start to walk through some of those assessments. And again, if you're just joining, we're probably going to go total like an hour and 15 minutes. So maybe an hour from now, or even closer to 90 minutes total, because I don't want you to miss out on the really powerful tapping, right? So I'm in the hardcover version of Unblocked. This is, I guess it is the version that's been chewed on by my 11-pound rescue rabbit who roams free around my house and chews on things. So this one is lovingly nibbled. But I want to read a little bit from page 6. Someone asked me for the page number, right, in this one. And so let me talk about a strong root chakra, okay? So a strong root chakra in adulthood means the world is our oyster. We are confident enough to apply for the dream job, ask for more money, start a business, or just be ourselves. We can be highly creative and have fun while being very focused, practical, balanced. We're usually bold, enthusiastic, willing to risk the unknown. And when we fail, as we all do, we know we're going to get over it because we have before, because we expect to be supported. We easily ask for help when we need it. Who has some alarm bells going off already? Yeah. We're resilient when we venture out on our own, as if our first chakra has within us a solid team supporting us, holding us, telling us it'll be okay. Like our inner voice has adopted this, you're going to be fine. It's going to be okay, cheering you on. It's like we have a tribe inside of ourselves with this wonderful supporting voice. Now, if our first chakra cup has not been filled enough, if we generally don't feel safe, don't feel valued, worried that we are a fraud, our first chakra is more like an empty space where anxiety swirls and floats with nothing to hold on to. Fear, anxiety, panic, failure, and disappointment are ours alone to deal with. Where we're meant to feel solid inside, it will instead feel shaky because we're built on a foundation of fear. So, a shaky foundation. This is not the healthy fear that alerts us to real danger and spurs us to respond, but a gnawing feeling that somehow we just aren't safe. We can't relax into safety, even during times when all is well. So, without that inner solid ground, having anxiety can feel like falling backward into a terrifying nothingness, a black hole, and it's rarely soothed. And so we don't go to the playground at all, or we do our best not to be noticed in life at the playground. We're much more comfortable, maybe even being invisible. When we're not lovingly attended to as a child, as a daily, pretty consistent reality, the built in messages that are cemented into our first chakra consciousness and nervous system is that we are not important enough. We don't matter enough. We're not loved and wanted enough to be reassured, to be soothed, to be made safe. For some people, it's even worse. So if we had an abusive childhood, our nervous system is on high alert, like we're always bracing for danger, for a beating, for a war zone. Our first chakra is built around a devastating series of painful experiences that have taught us which actions or desires are going to be ignored, or maybe even criticized, or maybe even attacked, or maybe punished. And so this becomes the seed of unworthiness that can underline a lifetime of struggle. And here's something really key that I want you to get. This foundation of fear creates a lifelong hidden agenda. We will do whatever it takes to avoid feeling that awful space of anxiousness. And so most of our actions, our achievements, even our ways of relating and connecting to others will center on trying to avoid feeling unsafe no matter the cost. So on the surface, this can look like procrastination. It can seem illogical for people, like, why am I procrastinating at this? But it's playing a key role in avoiding risk. Or we're going to work really hard and overachieve to prove we're good enough to chase feeling safe while always doubting on the inside. And so when we have a weak first chakra, we aren't fully present, we're not as grounded, and we will have excess energy up here into the head. And so the first chakra just shoots up this fight or flight, and now we have spinning energy in our head. And I mentioned, yep, thanks, Mary, page 8 now. I mentioned that the smarter we are, the harder it can be, because the smarter we are, the more we can have adapted. So we don't even remember that we're afraid or notice our body's signals, but we've adapted to saying, I prove myself and I can do, and I can do, and I can, or I can be perfectly giving and perfectly loving and never set a boundary, because then I will be loved and not abandoned. And not recognize that underneath all of that is, I don't feel safe. And so in a few minutes, I'm going to walk you through this assessment. Also, these are yours to download when you signed in for this. If you're watching on YouTube, we can put the link for you there as well. But this is why it's so important to diagnose. So I spend most of my time teaching coaches, teaching therapists, teaching people from all walks of life who are interested in coaching, like I was 18 years ago, how to work with people using the chakras as a lens. And the key I'm always telling them is, you cannot rely on the mind of your client. So for all of you, I want you to think about that in yourself. Your mind is not a reliable narrator of your anxiousness or what your issues are, because the first chakra, like, we don't remember how we were. We might have some information or like know things about our parents and how they were, but we've long forgotten that raw, anxious feeling. And it's often just so uncomfortable. That's why we reach for the phone so quick. That's why we reach for food so quickly. That's why we reach for achieve, prove myself so quickly. That's why it can be very hard to relax and be on vacation or relax at the end of the day unless we're exhausted, because it's uncomfortable to feel that, right? We have that expression. Let's see, I get this phantom note taker thing. Okay. We have that expression that someone isn't comfortable in their own skin. And I've known people like that in my life. They literally can't sit still. They're antsy, right? So there's always got to be something of helping me avoid that feeling. And of course, that can go into alcohol and drug addiction and all the different ways that we medicate ourselves without having any idea of what we're medicating. So again, our first chakra is created when we're born, and it develops, it gets filled, that cup gets filled by many, many, many experiences, not by thinking or thoughts. We don't, a baby doesn't have their logical mind online, right? They're not like, well, I'm pretty safe in this house. It's through sensory information on how we are calmed and treated. It is developed through shock and traumatic situations that aren't held afterward. So if you had something scary happen to you and then you were scared and your parents held you and hugged you and you cried and they told you it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, you're safe, your nervous system learned to experience that peak and then come down again. If you had something scary happen and you looked around and nobody even noticed, and you were just alone with all of that fear, again, it's like this gnawing anxiety in your body that to a child can feel like death, then that nervous system is on a higher alert. So when I think about a weak first chakra, a first chakra that needs work, that needs to be filled, to fill that cup so that we're on a solid foundation, not a shaky foundation. One thing goes wrong and I'm not good enough. I've heard that from so many super intelligent, super achievement oriented people. If I make one mistake and then I say fill in the blank and they're like, I'm not good enough, it all goes away. There's no solidity there. And so when we have a nervous system that's not as solid as it could be, we want to remember that that we're always on alert. We're always looking for danger. And there's a whole other thing that's happening. So where did the fight or flight come from? Well, it let us survive, right? Like, we survived out in the plains and the frozen tundras because if something was chasing us, our body, or those of us who survived, our body went into alert. And then a massive cascade of biochemical changes happened in our body. We become biologically modified in an instant. It's kind of a miracle, right? And so years and years of evolution turned that into a instantaneous biologically modified human that now had different breathing patterns, heart rate patterns, blood flow differences, hormone differences, so that I could run as fast as I could and scramble up a tree and not get eaten that day. And then as we developed as humans, we started to have more of this consciousness of, okay, well, now I'm safe, but I might start to think, but what if it comes back tomorrow? And so, do I want to move my family? Do I want to make a more secure place that I'm living? Because what if that beast comes back again? I need to be prepared for that. And so now I'm going to go into preparatory mode. In these modern days, all of that fight or flight, millions of years of evolution, all on that fight or flight are pretty much not needed and doing the opposite of what you need. And so the fight or flight that is often being triggered without us realizing that, this huge blind spot, means that whatever level of fight or flight I'm at, I now have cortisol pumping into my body. And honestly, today we are drowning in cortisol, absolutely flooding our bodies with cortisol all the time, from what we see on the news to what's happening in the world to what's happening in sometimes countries that we're living in as people hear from all over the world, or the fear of what might happen. Social media has transformed our younger generation into a now famous book called The Anxious Generation is out there. And so everything that we get from the fight or flight makes us less adapted to this modern life. And so if we have a strong first chakra, we can usually handle things more resiliently. So part of my assessment is, where did my nervous system start? Like, has it been this way since childhood? Because that's a really important thing to know. And then secondly, maybe my childhood was pretty solid, but what traumas or what fears have been now amping up in me that have become a loop? So we can start out having a weak first chakra, maybe, get through our 20s and 30s, and it starts to catch up with us typically in midlife, right around our midlife crisis, where we find like it's just not sustainable anymore for me to be so perfectionistic, for example, which is a first chakra issue, not a mind issue. That's why mindset never really works on perfectionism. It's a first chakra issue. And so how do I self-diagnose if my mind isn't really reliable because I have all this cortisol? What does cortisol do to our mind? It makes it a threat detecting machine. Where is the next tiger? Where is the next threat to my life? And it makes our thoughts frenetic. It pushes energy to our head. We're going to think more, think more, think more, think more. It also does something really, really important. And to me, I was thinking about it this morning. If I had to go and say, Margaret, what is the most dangerous thing that we are doing that we as humans do to ourselves? The most dangerous, I would say it's self-criticism, because it's the most common. It's so ubiquitous across everyone, and it's never really questioned in our system. And when we have high cortisol, our inner critic goes up. And then what happens? The inner critic triggers fight or flight. Your body does not know the difference between you saying, I am such an idiot, and a danger to your life. And so the critic triggers more cortisol. And so it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's, to me, this is one of the most dangerous things that we can do to ourselves, because no one can see it. It's on the inside. And it's so prevalent, so common, so destructive, and it puts us into loops. And so when we are self-criticizing ourselves, we increase our own cortisol levels. We are more likely to catastrophize and go like to extremes, like I'm a winner or I'm a loser, and this one mistake, that's it. And so we're talking about the first chakra. We're talking about the nervous system that drives the fight or flight. And we immediately end up at self-criticism and perfectionism as a coping mechanism to stay safe. So again, this is where it makes me so passionate. This is why I do this series every once in a blue moon, because we're trying to you read all these psychology books and all of these coaches and all of this mindset and all of these techniques about self-criticism, and we're missing the first chakra, fear component. And then the tailspin that happens as the cortisol cycle gets going. The more cortisol, the more I look at myself and I go, ugh, and I don't like how I look. And the more cortisol, guess what? You won't like how you look, because cortisol forces our body to pack on layers. It's part of what high cortisol does. And then right when we need the most self-compassion, we look at ourselves and go, ugh, ugh, and I've put on weight, and what is wrong with me? The other thing that I think is of interest to all of you here, because you tend to be people who are a little bit more motivated and want something, like you're here for not just for information. Usually you're like, I want to work on myself, is that all of this cortisol and self-criticism depresses our drive. It depresses motivation. It depresses dopamine in our system. And for you women, it also depresses your hormones. And I don't know about you, but in this phase, I'm 57, I'm in menopause. I need every bit of my hormones that I can get. I don't need any of them being like torn apart by having high cortisol in my system. And that's what it does. It chews up our estrogen and our progesterone, which leave us feeling more anxious and less socially courageous. And so we start to get smaller. And this is such a vicious cycle. And it starts with the first chakra. And so, as I want to come in to start talking about walking you just through this assessment, which of course you can download and get yourself, so I can walk through it quickly. But for me, I always want to impress upon you is that if you are endeavoring to make a change this year, to make a change in yourself, to start to feel more joyful, more drive, more alive, more happy, more courageous, to do the things that you are dying to do, right? As Wayne Dyer said, to not die with your magic in you, then I would offer you a couple of things. First of all, the self-diagnosis. Where are you in this range of 1 to 10 of anxiety, and how do you operate on a daily basis? Understand how the fight or flight is impacting your focus, your energy, your ability to even think clearly and think in a focused way. Because often as we get older, we talk about brain fog, and I hear younger and younger people talking about brain fog than ever before. Understand how cortisol in the fight or flight affects your hormones. Are you in a loop? Understand how the fight or flight, how a lifetime of anxiety affects your inner critic. And again, most dangerous to the self. Why? Because we listen to our inner critic like it's God. We listen to our inner critic and nobody can tell us otherwise. And so inner critic is a heart chakra issue. We're going to talk about in the fourth of these calls, we're going to talk about the heart chakra, but it starts at the first chakra. So here's the thing. If I am out on the savannah and a lion starts chasing me, that is not the time for me to be self-compassionate. It's not the time for me to be like, I don't want to pull a hammy, so I should probably stretch first, right? And maybe I should moisturize because I'm going to be up in that tree. There is no time for self-compassion when survival is on the line. You just run. And if I pulled my hammy, I wouldn't even feel it for another hour because of the adrenaline in my system. And so when you are in fight or flight, when your system runs that way, because your first chakra is not as solid and grounded and filled as it can be, self-compassion goes out the window and self-critic rules. Why does the self-critic rule? Because what is that? What is the inner critic telling us all the time? we have to do better and be better and look better and be more nice, more giving, more smart, more perfect to stay safe. And people will give me a whole line of things. Well, so that I succeed, and so that people don't reject me, and so that and it all comes down eventually to, so I feel safe because I finally feel good enough. And I'm like, and what does that feel like? Well, I'm not criticizing myself. And well, and what does that feel like? I don't know. It's like I will finally feel like relief. And so sometimes that's all I can get from people. It's like, I don't know. It's just because I've never felt that way before. And so understanding that that inner critic is so devastating, and we listen to it like it is the voice from on high. If someone said to you, as I know people have in your life, you shouldn't be so hard on yourself, what do you say inside of your head to them? Go ahead, put it on the chat. What do you say when you're nodding at them? Mm-hmm. Or when you did something and they're like, you were amazing, and you're completely got a different perspective on that. What do you say? Yeah, you don't understand. Right. And so we nicely smile and we pat them on the head, metaphorically, like, oh, yeah, I should be better to myself. Aren't you adorable? Right? I have to do this. That sounds nice, but you don't understand. You have no idea. You just don't know. And so the inner critic is the smartest person on your team, is what we think. And we worship at the feet of our inner critic. Oh my God, I'm so right about everything. Other people are wrong. I'm right about this. That's why I think it's the most dangerous. But as we talk about, inner critic, let's talk about self-compassion, because what's the opposite of the inner critic? It's actually self-compassion. That has to be learned. We have to notice that someone is feeling scared or hurt or down or depressed or disappointed. We have to notice and move in with the hug, in the kindness, in the love. And so if that wasn't demonstrated to us multiple times in our life, that compassion, we don't learn how to do it for ourselves. I don't care how compassionate you are to other people. I don't. I mean, it's wonderful for them. We can be the most giving person on the planet, right? Making everybody cookies. What I care about is how compassionate you are to you. So what happens when we give ourselves self-compassion? Do you want to hear what actually happens? Oh my God, it's terrible. This is why we don't do it. It's terrible what happens when we give ourselves self-compassion. It reduces our cortisol levels very, very quickly. And in general, when we do it as a practice, we are less likely to even get activated into the stress response. It reduces all of our perceptions of threat from failures and setbacks. So we catastrophize less. It's called emotional resilience. And so self-compassion, not self-criticism, enhances our emotional resilience. So a good friend of mine said, whatever your drive is, your goal is, your ambition is, your self-compassion has to rise with it. You cannot get where you are going with the inner critic that you have today. And underneath that inner critic, I am telling you, is fear. Underneath that inner critic is some fear. And it thinks it's being helpful, right? It's like, because if I yell at myself, I'll finally what? What will you finally do if you just listen to your inner critic enough? I will finally what? Tell me on the chat. Be perfect, be good enough, be good enough, be good enough, be okay, be safe, right? And so when we break down under people, right? And it's like, oh, and Faustina said, or Faustine, be perfect. And then what? Then I finally get to be what? If I'm finally perfect, I finally get to be what? I finally get it right. And that means what? I finally get it right? It's like, ask yourself that question, right? Or, yeah, like it's going to motivate me finally. Like yelling at me, myself, is going to motivate me. Worthy, accepted, relaxed. Nobody else can criticize me. Interesting, right? And so, do you hear the safety in there, Fustine? Thank you for answering that question. Yeah, I'll finally be seen and heard. And does that feel safe? Right? Or I'll do what I want to do. I'll finally deserve accolades. So I don't deserve them now, right? So as we think about the first chakra, again, there is, if you've signed up for today in this series of 4, we're just talking about the first chakra, but this is the foundation of everything. Everything builds on the first chakra. Every chakra that is built, second, third, fourth, fifth, all rely on the first chakra's information. What is this foundation built on? Oh, I'm not safe. And so now, second, third, fourth, all the chakras build on this lie that I'm actually not lovable or good enough or perfect enough to be loved, to be taken care of, and therefore safe. So when you think about, again, what I want to impress upon you, know a little bit more about the fight or flight in general and how that cortisol affects your mind, your focus, your inner critic, and even, yes, men and women, your hormones. How does it affect you in later life to have chronic high cortisol? I'm not a health practitioner, but I'm sure there's probably one on here that could give you lists of things that I haven't even touched on, the physical things from having high cortisol.
Okay, so that's different than the 4,000. Okay.
Bethany. Can't figure. I'm not able to mute. Awesome. Thank you. And so I'm not even talking about the health impact of the fight or flight. So educate yourself a little bit more on that, and then know that your mind is not reliable and you have to do a self-assessment. Now, the series that's going to follow this one is really for coaches or people who are interested in coaches, therapists who like to grow their tools or become a coach. I'm doing a series after this one to show you how to do some of these assessments with people, because to me, that's how we get to the blind spot. But I'm going to walk you through this assessment that you get with this series. Okay, so the first question, I have people take a breath and feel within and simply say out loud, when I go within, I truly feel safe. And how true does that feel? When I go within, I truly feel safe. How true does that feel on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 is completely true? Second question, there's 6 questions total here. This is the same question said the opposite way. When I go within, I can feel that I never really feel safe. How true does that feel? Because sometimes they can both kind of feel true. Sometimes it's the mind speaking and sometimes it's the system speaking. Question number 2, that was a 2-parter, right? Either way, when I go within, I can feel that I never really feel safe. Number 2, when I make a mistake or I miss something, I missed it, I feel a rise in stress in my system, and that makes me anxious or on edge. How true does that feel? On a scale of 1 to 10, right? Is it 100%? Number 3, this is a little different of a question. When I think about my absolute right to be here, to be seen, to be heard, right? Like if there's a group of people talking, you're like, hi, I have something to say, right? My right to be here, to be seen, to be heard, and to want and go for what I want, I secretly doubt that absolute right. I'm not sure I've earned or proven that I deserve those things yet. How true does that feel? And I think others probably doubt it too. right? So this is diagnosing your first chakra. Question number 4, I often feel like I can't focus or I can't get clear or I feel scattered or overwhelmed. Now, this can be for some people in life, and for other people, it can be like when I focus on my goal, I get scattered and I feel overwhelmed. Question number 5. Well, did you know that being in the fight or flight or having a weak first chakra will make it very, very difficult for you to set boundaries? So number 5 is when someone else's behavior is inappropriate or even hostile towards me, I typically freeze or I ignore it or act like it's nothing or try to appease them. If you do any of those behaviors, I freeze, I ignore it, I try to appease them, or I pretend it's nothing, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being totally true. And finally, number 6, I often feel invisible. Sometimes it seems like people don't even notice I'm there. On a scale of 1 to 10, how true does that feel? I often feel invisible. And so this one is interesting because some people that are chronically in fight or flight or out of their body, you're actually not that present. And it is weird that people sometimes will say, oh my God, I didn't even see you here. Or I felt like no one saw me, or people will tell me that they have had experiences where they were in the front row, like with their hand up, and it's like the speaker didn't even see them, or they were with a group and all of a sudden the group left them behind, and they're like, we didn't even know you were there. And so having that kind of invisible, I feel invisible a lot, is another good clue. Now, not everyone has all of these, but this is about saying, I'm going to go past my blind spots or my thinking about it and see if any of these feel true, because that could be my blind spot to work on. So how do we refill the first chakra? How do we work with the, thank you, Bethany's putting the chakra assessments for you there if you don't have those. There's 4 of them for each of these chakra, one for each of these chakra series. And so the reason that I use tapping or emotional freedom technique, where we're tapping on acupuncture points, isn't just because it looks silly on camera and I wanted to make videos of me tapping on my face. It's because when we tap with our fingertips on acupuncture points, our fight or flight goes down. It's a miracle. And so we can purposefully biologically modify ourselves and turn off the fight or flight. And so this has been around for, I don't know, over 30 years. Nobody knew why it worked at first, but there's all of these testing and clinical trials that have been done that actually demonstrate that as you tap, your cortisol levels drop. That is a miracle, because it only takes minutes to turn down your fight or flight, to take you out of frenetic energy, out of your inner critic, out of the fear, out of the anxiety, and actually put you in a calmer state. Sometimes I've worked with people who they don't even realize they're in such chronic fight or flight all the time because they're super mobilized. They're doing and doing and doing and doing, and they can do it all. And then they start tapping, and guess what happens? They get really, really sleepy. And they're like, oh my God, I feel like I could go to sleep. And you start to see the adrenal fatigue that they are in. Yeah. And so the sympathetic nervous system starts to turn down. It's like telling the body through a stimulation of the acupuncture point, the tapping stimulates the acupuncture points. It gives the body the opposite message of the fight or flight. It says, it's okay, I'm safe. And the parasympathetic nervous system starts to come on, and you'll see a group of people start to yawn. right? And like, why am I yawning? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Why do I feel tired? We start to feel calmer. And then when we change the body, the mind changes. And so the root of everything I do and everything I teach, and sometimes people introduce me as a mindset speaker, right? And it's like, yes, I am going to talk about your mind. And often the core of mindset is change the mind and your body will change. And in this way, and that's great, right? We can positively do affirmations and our body will get more excited, right? But in this way, we change the body and the mind changes. We become more resilient, more open, more calm, more likely to be self-compassionate. However, this is why I wrote a whole chapter on the heart chakra, which is the fourth in our series coming up. We're doing that next week because I have found people using years and years of this technique called tapping around the blind spot of their inner critic because they're right about that. And so we can't use tapping on things we don't even know we have, right? And tapping changes the body. It's like freedom at our fingertips, it's been called. And we don't use tapping on things that we're right about because we're right. And so everything I said about the inner critic being the most dangerous thing that we do includes people who use tapping and on themselves because they don't tap on the things that they're like, well, I'm right that I'm a piece of crap. So I don't need to, that I'm not good enough. I'm right about that. That's not a problem I need to solve. I just need to improve. And so you'll see in the fourth chakra that we do together a lot of discussion and a lot more work around the inner critic directly. So I want to shift gears now. You can ask me some questions on the chat, right? Darcy said, or Daisy said, how do we change the body? And there's Craig right there jumping in. Why tapping on these acupuncture points? See what happens, Craig, when you've been on my calls for a good year or so. You know this stuff inside and out. And so any questions that you have, I'm going to transition. I'll take a few questions, but I'll transition into doing the tapping experience so we can have that experience together. Let's see. Let's see. Kathy, you direct messaged me. I would direct that to our support and we'll figure that out because I don't know how to answer that question. So support@margaretlentranery.com if you have those kinds of questions of process or emails or things like that. Awesome. Oceana said, I'm 100% willing to have my blind spots unveiled so they can be healed. I'm willing to be wrong about my self-criticism. Yes, I'm ready to do the work. Awesome. Okay, yeah, so calming the inner critic, we will do more of that on the fourth chakra call because the fourth chakra, which is the heart chakra, people are always like, it's going to be about love and forgiveness. And it's more about love and forgiveness towards yourself, right? Towards yourself. I often, and I'm sure this group of 187 is no different. I often have groups that are loving, giving people. And the issue is not how you're treating others, it's how you are treating you. Okay, let's see. Oceana said, can we tap on a loved one's criticism of us to make it stop? That is a fascinating question, Oceana. And so the answer is kind of like yes, because when something no longer triggers us, if someone in your family said to you, Oceana, you're so purple today, what would your response to that be? Probably like, what? Okay. If a child said, you're so purple today, Auntie Oceana or Uncle Oceana, you're so purple today, you would be like, okay. And so when we take our inner critic down and we start to love and accept ourselves, even with our faults and our gifts, we are not as thrown off balance. So again, we're talking about first chakra, solid foundation. I know me. I know myself. And so someone could throw something at me and say, Margaret, you're so selfish, or Margaret, you're so rude. And I can feel that in my system. I mean, obviously we don't want someone to it doesn't feel good if someone that we care about is hard on us. But we have this solid foundation that we can sit with it, we can reflect on it, we can self assess. And when I go in and self assess, I go, yeah, sometimes I am selfish. And also, I'm also really generous. So I'm okay with what you're saying. And I can also be in a more solid place to know sometimes it's about something going on with the other person, or hey, maybe there's something for me to reflect on here. But I don't tumble backwards into space with no ground, and I'm now completely annihilated. So when criticism annihilates us, it's because our first chakra is not strong. It's not a full cup. Now, if you have a wonderful family and you've had times in your life where something honestly annihilated you, an illness, a sickness, an event, something at work, a relationship, and you were just annihilated by it and crushed. And if you have wonderful tribe, family, friends, supportive people, what did they do? Right? They come in and they hold you and you cry and they're there for you and they remind you who you are. They're like, you're awesome. We love you. This too shall pass. It's going to be okay. Hey, there's a rainbow. Let's get a cup of coffee until you recover. And so tribe is a form of first chakra solidity, and it encodes into our body. So the next time something hard happens, I don't even have to call a friend. I can be like, I know what this friend would say. She'd say, they're crazy. You're awesome. And I can feel that in me. And so, first chakra is like having this supportive, loving tribe inside. And for those of you who did not get that, did not have a family show up for you that way, that if you close your eyes and think, what would they say? It's something positive there. We got you. You got this. Don't let the turkeys get you down, right? We know who you are. You're awesome. We're going to remind you. When we don't have that, we need to fill it in. So the first part is to use tapping to reduce the fight or flight trigger. And then, as you know, we'll be talking about more in the series for coaches for using this work with people. The second part is how do I refill the cup? How do I refill the first chakra? Instead of just tapping away some of the issues, I now need to bring more to it, right? Okay, so I want y'all to take a breath. Because I've been talking a lot and we're listening and we're processing mentally. But I want you to take a nice cleansing breath and feel into your body, feel into the chair supporting you. It's a little harder for me to breathe because, as you can hear from my voice, I'm a little stuffed up. But I want you to have an experience of your first chakra and of tapping. So I want you to close your eyes because we're going to be visualizing or imagining something. And just imagine that with your next breath in and out, you could really kind of feel into your body and feel the chair supporting you. Just help us get into our body. Feel your feet on the ground. And feel into your body as I say these words. And see how true they feel, like we did in the assessment question. The truth is, I don't feel safe. I'm not safe because. Just hear what the answer is. I will be safe when I And just note, what are those answers? So I want you to write that down for yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, meaning 10 was very true. I never feel safe. How true did that feel? And you can share it again on the chat if you like. And then I want you to write down your answer. I don't feel safe because. What popped into your head? Like first thought, best thought. Okay, getting some I'm alone. I don't feel safe because. What popped into your head? I'm limited. I don't really know who I am. People might reject me. Always finding some fault. People get upset. It's my fault because I'm not lovable. I don't feel safe because my finances are not strong. I can't trust people. My body is sick. My body betrays me. I'm alone and I could easily be eaten by a tiger. I'm not safe because I can't be myself. I don't have enough money. I'm not fully authentic with others. And so, the third question was, I will be safe when I finally what? I will be safe when I finally what? When I can get back to work, when I can build security, when I'm healthy, when I reach my goal, when I accept myself, when I finally acknowledge that I have my own gifts to give, when I know who I am, when I'm fixed, um, when I trust my logic, when I do what others, when other people will not be triggered anymore, when I feel connected to a partner and a family of my own, when I feel safe at home, but I don't feel safe at work because I'm behind, when I'm fully authentic and stand up to bad behavior, when I can remove the blocks, when I stop agreeing with the criticism of others through self-criticism. So I just want you to take stock, right, of all of the things that require more future work for you to feel safe. And all of the things that you're putting there, like when I reach my financial goals, right? That could be very well true. When we have financial security, we feel safer, right? We feel grounded. But are any of these things being helped by you being in the fight or flight and having high cortisol? Does high cortisol, which makes takes your prefrontal cortex and takes it offline, right? So you're not thinking clearly anymore. You're not as focused. You're not as grounded. You're not as courageous. Does any of that help with any of the things that you need to do? So this is where we want to start turning it down. Okay, so let's start where I'm going to tap through in using these tapping points that you can see on camera, right? And so we use side of the hand. There's two tapping spots there. Well, I can use the eyebrow point or both of them. It's right where the bridge of the nose hits the eyebrow, right there. It's a little acupuncture point there. If you've ever had acupuncture, you may have had a needle there. The side of the eye, another common acupuncture point right on the edge of the bone. And you can just start tapping even without words with me. And then we'll do under the eye, and it's right on the edge of the bone under the pupil. And I use two fingers to make sure I'm hitting the acupuncture point, okay? The next one is under the nose, another common place. People use needles for acupuncture in the under the lip and the cleft of the chin there. And then here on the collarbone, and I usually do both sides, you have this U-shaped bone. And if you just kind of come down into this indentation, I use all my fingers because it kind of feels good to just tap right there. And then I don't have to worry that I'm not hitting the tapping point. It just doesn't work as well. There's another one on the top of the head. Some people will just kind of use their whole hand to hit the top of their head. There's one under the arm that a lot of people like to use, a little harder to see on camera, but I'm happy to use that one. There's more acupuncture points. People can tap their ankles, but these are the ones we use on camera so that you can follow along. Okay, and so let's start tapping right here on the side of the hand. I honor this fear in my body. And you're just going to say that out loud. We use our words to kind of stay tuned in mentally. I honor this fear in my body. Breath. I honor this fear that's often in my body. And now we're going to do here, eyebrow point. There's a side of me that doesn't feel safe. There's a side of me that doesn't feel safe. And it's really scared. And I'm a pretty smart together person. But there's a side of me that's really anxious, really worried. And maybe over the last few years, it's in a habit of being even more worried. Just notice if that feels true for you. Not feeling safe. Not feeling safe in my body. Not feeling safe in my life. The side of me that maybe has never felt safe. That's really sad. To never feel safe. I wonder how far that goes back. And I honor all the things I do throughout my life to try to stay safe. All the things I try to be to finally feel good enough. And then I can exhale and be safe. I'm just going to take stock of the anxiety that keeps me running fast. And also frozen. Going 100 miles an hour, but also feeling stuck. I honor this fight or flight in my body. It's not helping me, but I hear it. Okay, and take a breath. So I want you to close your eyes again. And I want you to imagine that on the movie screen of your mind, you could see yourself sitting where you are, just as you are today. Just like the movie screen of your mind or your imagination could paint you this picture of you sitting where you are exactly right now. And you're looking, you're observing, you're taking you in this moment. Notice the look on your face, your body language. And now I want you to bring to mind one of the things you put on the chat, like I'll finally feel safe when. And put it like it's this floating sign around you, looming over you. I'll finally be safe when I have financial security or whatever it is. And see what happens as you hold that in your energy field around you. On a scale of 1 to 10, what does it do to your fight or flight? What does that I will finally in the future get to feel safe? And how do you know if it's an 8 or a 9 or a 7 or a 10? How do you know that you're at an 8 or a 9 or a 7 or a 10? How do you look? Do you look stressed? Do you look anxious? Do you look sad? Do you look tired? And just see that body scan. When something triggers you, like looking at this goal and what you want and what you don't have yet, imagine you could see how the energy flows through your body in the fight or flight, shoots energy up to your head. It's all of this energy up around your head. Maybe so much that you're frozen or unclear or avoidant, procrastinating, or maybe doing 8,000 things at once and multitasking. How does it work in your energy? How does that stress look? Do you look frozen and in action at the same time? Or is it so overwhelming that it just gets depressing and frustrating? And so now I want you to imagine there you are, it's sitting where you are in this moment. And I want you to imagine that a young child steps out of your body, a scared child. That is your scared side. A side of you that's not as logical, not as adult, even though you've got adult goals. The side of you that's really scared, shaky, scared child. And just see that little one there. Because this is the one that's living in your first chakra, pulling the strings. And so we're just going to tap. You can leave your eyes closed and tap whatever spots you like or can remember, or you can open them. And just repeat after me. There they are. This young child, this scared side that lives in my nervous system, my first chakra. This young one that reacts in such fear of making a mistake. in such fear of getting it wrong, in such fear of people being mad, in such fear of standing out, in such fear of the criticism coming from other people. A child that's been frozen before in the face of criticism or shame or danger. Maybe this child absorbed from my parents anxiety about money, about people, about success, or just their free floating anxiety. I see this little child. That is my anxiety. Not at a 2, like a warning for an adult, but it can go to a 10. I see this little child in me that has been totally ignored, unknown, unloved, misunderstood. Even I didn't know it was there, but I'm just going to honor it. The side of me that's scared all the time. And take a breath and just see how the child is looking now. How does it look? Has it changed since we did this tapping? How is it looking at you? Does it know that you're there? And just tell me on the chat, what do you want to say about that little child that stepped out of your nervous system? It feels noticed at last. I'm so proud of you. She is seen. I want to pick her up and hold her. Beautiful, Chris. Yeah. She wants me to put her to bed and snuggle her to sleep. She's feeling loved. Beautiful. Feels heard. I see you. I'm here for you. I will never leave you. Beautiful, Jane. We have each other. Awesome, Christina. She knows I'm with her and love her no matter what. Wow. Wow. Cher, she said she has every right to be scared. She's glad to be with me. Irene said she's starting to relax. So I didn't even say like love on the child, right? But when we tap, it's like we're accessing this layer and we're turning down the fight or flight. Destiny said something really powerful. She's crying tears of relief. When a child is scared for a long time and finally gets noticed and hugged, they usually burst into tears. So I want you to just think about that what I commonly find is under a lot of anxiety is a sob that needs to come out, a good cry. But we need people to help us to cry sometimes, don't we? You know, I don't, if you've ever had a child that is like they get hurt and they're like this until they see their mom or they see you if you're their mom or their auntie, and then as soon as you hug them, they burst into tears. I remember my daughter saying at one age, "Don't hug me because I'll cry." So sometimes we need compassion in order to let that cry out. Linda said, I burst into tears. Yeah, she's very sad. So just kind of feel into your body, feel the chair supporting you, and put your hands on your heart. And imagine that you could allow this child to, instead of living in your first chakra, ringing the alarm bells, catastrophizing, like not understanding so many of these modern fears, let them live in your heart. Imagine that with all the compassion you have in your heart, you could surround that child with love and compassion. Like you could pour that energy into them, and know that as you're doing that, you're pouring that energy into your first chakra. And I want you to say some things to them now out loud on your own, but I want you to use the voice you would normally use with a child that was scared. Maybe something like, it's okay. It's okay. You're okay. Or we'll get there, right? Or we'll do it step by step. It's okay. Or maybe you don't have to take it all on your shoulders at once. Or maybe it's okay to cry. I'm with you. I love you. Yeah, thanks, Wanda. And so now I want you to imagine that you could take a breath in, but this time imagine you could breathe into your heart directly. So as your breath is coming in, it's going directly into your heart. And as you blow it out, it's coming out of your heart. Really see if you can make that strong. Imagine what color that would be coming into your heart and coming out of your heart, creating this beautiful heart coherence that brings into coherence the lower three chakras and the upper three chakras, with your heart in charge instead of your fear. And one more big breath into your heart. Blow it out. And now on this next breath into your heart, we're going to do a slow, slow out breath, like a count of 10. And so the best way to do that is to purse your lips like you're blowing out of a straw. So we're going to breathe in and out. And in and out 10. Which is a breathing that also calms the vagal nerve. And the vagal nerve goes from our brain all the way down through our body, through our stomach, into our intestines. And it gets triggered by the fight or flight. So one more breath in. And now with your eyes closed, picture that little one more time. And see how they look now. And give them permission to Step into your body, into your heart, and bring a lightness to your nervous system, a childlike energy of well-being and joy, a feeling of hugs and play and happiness and peals of laughter that children often have, to remind your nervous system that there will be peaks of stress and then recover, where all is well, and you are loved, you are safe. And so regardless of what you have to get done in this moment, I want you to affirm with me, in this moment, in this space, in my chair, I am here, I am safe, I am loved. In this moment, in this chair, in this space, I can gift myself a moment of feeling safe and loved and total presence. And from that abundance, I can create anything. So feel your feet on the floor. Feel your feet where they're touching your shoes or touching the floor. Imagine that your feet could pulsate a little bit. See if you can reach to feel the bottoms of your feet. Imagine they could pulsate with energy, being all the way down in your first chakra in your body. When your energy is down in your feet, your mind can be clear in your head. I am safe. I am loved. Of course, I have a scared side. And of course, I have a brave side. It's okay. Take a breath and get ready to come back to the room. And notice how you feel in your body. Look around the room. Notice how everything looks. Notice how present you are. You're welcome, Molly. Good to see you. How are you feeling? And yes, if you're tired, it probably means you push yourself too hard. And so this is a step towards, we did a tiny bit of tapping on our fear. We didn't get too specific into anything, right? Because even all the things that you all said there of I will be safe when I finally, all those are good. But in this moment, in this present moment, in order to be in your most powerful creative self, you cannot be in the fight or flight of that future moment. You cannot live in the I will be safe in 10 years or next year when I have all this done. It does not work. And as a matter of fact, someone mentioned my first book, Tapping into Wealth, that came out in 2013 with Penguin Books. And one of the things I talk about in that book is what if from this anxiety that you carry, you are manifesting your life to match your relationships, your money, your success? What if that is being manifested by your dominant energy of I don't feel safe? Chicken or the egg? And so let's shift to having these moments of presence, moments of solidity in our first chakra. I can just feel present and calm. And our next call, which is on Thursday together after the new year, we're going to go into the second chakra where we have charge and fire and energy and passion, but it has to build on this solid foundation. So I'm so looking forward to seeing you on Thursday and hearing from you as we move through these 4 chakras. Again, make sure you can download all 4 of the assessments are there for you to download. And yes, I have nothing to sell you. If you want to pick up my book on Amazon, I would love that. This is the book Unblocked. We are following through the series. If you have it and you have anything to say about it, please do a review. Thank you for wishing me well. I hope I get better soon. I'm very happy I got through this without coughing. And I will see you all on Thursday. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, there will be a recording of this. Absolutely. All right. See you, everybody. Bye. Bye. Thanks for the heart, Samara. I see those. So great to see all of you. Oh, there you all are. I can see you all now. So great to see you. Oh, thank you for having your cameras on. I can't see you all as much when I have it on speaker view. I can only see a few of you. So great to see you. Oh my goodness, so many new faces and so many familiar faces. I still haven't figured out how to make the hearts go on the screen. So you're way ahead of me, Jane and Fustine. Beautiful. Okay. Oh, you too, Carol. You guys got it. Wow. Wait, what's Fustine have now? Are those spaceships? Are those little rockets? Oh my God, you guys are too much. Awesome. Okay, we'll see you guys Thursday. Bye, everybody. Second chakra. It's gonna be big. We'll see you there.